So last Thursday, the Brooklyn Nets got an emphatic win over the team that appears to be their new rival, the Philadelphia 76ers, and even though they've only played one game since then, it feels like the energy and the vibes around this team have changed, and today I want to break down what the team has done so well lately, as well as what they need to do more of that can help them continue to play like a legit championship contender. What's up guys, SCJ here, and if you enjoyed today's video, then make sure to give it a like as it helps out a lot, and if you're new to the channel and or enjoy the NBA, then make sure to hit that subscribe button and notification bell. So going back to the Nets win over the Sixers from last Thursday, the team looked locked in as they got a near 30-point win where none of the Sixers starters even attempted a shot in the fourth quarter. That's insanely impressive, and one of the biggest things that stuck out to me was their defense, and I'm going to get into that a little bit later. But even without Ben Simmons, who was the main piece they received back in the Harden trade, the Nets showed off perfectly how KD and Kyrie have to operate alongside new players such as Andre Drummond, Seth Curry, and Goran Dragic in order for this team to win games, and most importantly, of course, win an NBA title. So let's just get right into it and look at a few plays right now, and this one more specifically. Even with how phenomenal Embiid is as a player and on defense, he simply put is not a top-tier big man in terms of guarding the pick and roll, and the Nets seem like they knew that and they attacked that weakness. Embiid failed to switch out onto Kevin Durant, which forced Tobias Harris into having to close out extremely late, and it looked like Kevin Durant didn't even notice Harris closing out whatsoever. If the Nets continue to use Andre Drummond to screen for others and attack bigs who aren't great at guarding pick and rolls, that'll spell well for their success in the playoffs in my eyes. Andre Drummond's screening seems to be a more important part to the Nets offense than many have realized right here, and you can see a play where he sets a beautiful screen on Maxey and attacks him, and Curry drives, pump fakes, and then gets a wide open jumper in the mid-range. Attacking Embiid downhill seemed to be a great way to get easy offense in this game for the Nets, so on a big with similar defensive tactics and traits as Embiid in the playoffs, I think it'd be smart to go back to that same strategy. Looking more into how the Nets attacked Embiid, they used a screen on a fast break for Kevin Durant to get a triple here, and while I brought up how great Drummond has been as a screener for the Nets since he joined the team, here's a guy Steve Nash needs to give more minutes to, Nick Claxton, who does an excellent job and shows a great example of his value to this Nets team. Regardless of whether it's Claxton or Drummond though, it seems that running plays off screens or dribble handoffs is only a recipe for success for this Nets team with the personnel that they have on this roster, and they need to do more of that in my eyes if they want to be successful in the playoffs. One of the things that I mentioned a bit earlier was how good the Nets defense was, and here's some examples right here, as Dragic doesn't do a bad job of defending Harden before James Johnson swats away his lane attempt and Kyrie hits a beautiful three on the fly on a fast break. Dragic also needs to be used as a secondary facilitator more often, or as the main facilitator in home games where Kyrie can't play, as you can see right here his beautiful pass that leads to 3 Kevin Durant points. This same lineup on the floor with Ben Simmons replacing Bruce Brown also would be super scary for opposing teams in my opinion once they get Simmons back. Right here are some examples of how Kyrie seemed to be more locked in on defense than usual on Thursday night, and the Nets are going to need him to bring that same energy in the games that he's eligible to play, as he really pestered Harden on Thursday night and became a problem for the Sixers. Going back to how Embiid defended screens poorly against the Nets, well, Philly or Embiid adjusted in the second quarter, yet great ball movement by the Nets still helped them to counter the Sixers' adjustments. This is a positive for the Nets though, because regardless of how teams adjust to them, it shows that the team can recognize that and counter the other team's adjustments, which will only be a positive for them going forward if they continue with that, as it'll be needed to succeed in the playoffs against top teams. Right here, great ball movement once again seems to be something that the Nets need to make sure they continue to keep it up with, and that should go without saying, but still, with as much great spacing as the Nets can create with lineups of 4 guys that can really stretch the floor in this lineup, you can only imagine if LaMarcus Aldridge was healthy and in there in place of Nick Claxton, just how scary their spacing would be, and I'd really like to see that going forward. Now, let's dive a bit deeper into one of the Nets' most impressive showings from this performance against the Sixers, and that was their defense, which I spoke about a bit earlier. Now, like I said before, Steve Nash needs to play Nick Claxton more, as he did such a great job against Embiid, and right here, his great hands against Embiid led to 2 points on a fast break. Right here, the Nets learned that guarding Embiid tight simply was not working, as he shot 13 free throws in the first quarter alone, so they lived with him shooting the 3-ball or jumpers, and it worked out to their advantage. This was from the Nets game on Sunday against the Knicks, and the fact that Goran Dragic even stopped the Knicks or Randle from scoring here is crazy, but this also shows the Nets' confidence and ability to switch on to guys, as well as their defensive versatility as well. Right here, also from the Nets game against the Knicks, you can see Claxton's importance once again on display, as late in the first quarter he shows his great defensive ability as well as grabs the rebound. The way Claxton also fights for rebounds is so underrated in my opinion, and on the next play right here, he does just that, and this is why I think Claxton is another key to the Nets being successful in the playoffs, whether he starts for the Nets or comes off the bench. Claxton played phenomenal defense and got the rebound here, and his ability to switch on to smaller defenders is a beautiful and positive thing for the Nets, and then his offense on the opposite end of the floor right after is only a plus. Right here in the final play of the game, it's the great defense by Bruce Brown on display, and his role on this Nets team is so important as he deflects Fournier's pass after catching the inbound, and Claxton was in the perfect position as he followed the ball as well and caught Brown's deflection in what ultimately sealed the deal for the Nets to win this game against the Knicks on Sunday. Going back to Claxton though, this is another play from his performance against the Sixers, and I love how he showed how scary he can be for this Nets team by tipping the pass away as he switched on to James Harden and got the N1 as well on the fast break. His speed and ability to move as he sets the screen for Durant here and then scores on Harden is something I'd like to see the Nets do more of with him as well. Then right on the following play, him and Durant went to a screen and roll play again, and he had such ease scoring on plays like this, and it just is free points for the Nets, at least that's how it looked. His ability to get up and block shots was hugely on display as well, and the Nets could always use that. So I think the Nets have showed multiple things over their last two games that they need to make sure they go back to down the stretch of the season and in the playoffs. And while it's going to take Kyrie Irving and Ben Simmons both being on the floor for the Nets to contend for a title, I think their depth has allowed them to figure out the sets, plays, and defenses that they'll need to incorporate in order to win playoff ball games come April. I think Bruce Brown has been such an integral part of this Nets team as of late, and it feels like the James Harden trade has something to do with that, as he's played so well as of late, and he's gone from averaging 6 points prior to the trade to now averaging 14 points since the Nets game against the Sacramento Kings, which was the first game that Andre Drummond and Seth Curry played for the Nets. Also, the Brooklyn Nets have had the 9th worst defense in the NBA for the whole season, and they have had the 6th worst defense ever since Joe Harris went down on November 14th. So it's no surprise when they're playing great defense as of late, they look like a much better team. So on offense, it seems like they're going to need to continue to adapt to how their opponents defend them like they did against the Sixers and attack their opponent's weakness, but also make sure they continue this little streak they're on where they're looking like a great defensive team as they've locked up teams like the Sixers, Hornets, and the Knicks as of late. The Nets will be on the road against the Orlando Magic tonight, and it'll be interesting to see how they look as it's in Orlando, so Kyrie Irving will be eligible to play, and they should win that game. But originally I was going to wait until tonight's game to break down more footage of the team, but I've been working on this video for a little bit now, so I kind of just wanted to get it out. If you guys do want to see more Nets content though, let me know, because that's going to be it for me today on my short little breakdown and what I think the Nets need to do a little bit more of in order to beat the top teams. Of course, they will need to be fully healthy, but I want to know what you guys think about the Nets or anything we talked about in this video down below in the comment section. If you like this video, then make sure to give it a like as it helps out a lot. And if you're new to the channel and or enjoy the NBA, then make sure to hit that subscribe button and notification bell. That way you stay up to date with all the newest content on my channel. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. I'm SCJ, and I am out. Peace.